The LA Kings are an interesting team. I have listened a lot to what Mark Yannetti has to say whenever he does speak publicly about his work, and while I don't necessarily always agree with what he says, I'm in no real position to be that critical, and I do think a lot of what he has to put out there is really valuable information. I would really urge people to go watch the LA Kings official YouTube channel podcast where they had Yannetti on the show right before the draft, hosted by Jesse Cohen, a guy I've met and a really great dude all around and a great host of that program, and they have a really interesting interview about Yannetti's process and the team's areas of interest and what they really kind of look for in a player. And when you look at what the Kings end up with every single year in the draft, I might have gone a different direction in a spot or two here and there, but when you zoom out and look at the team overall and really take a look as a team that is in the playoffs more often than not these days, they still have ended up with some really impressive players in their system here. Starting off, we've got a depth category that is quite large. We're going to start with the goaltenders actually, because Carter George, I've upgraded him into the depth category here. I just can't really find a fault in his game, honestly, whenever I've seen him this year. This is a guy that played on one of the worst teams in the OHL this year. He has been absolutely shelled with shots, and he has looked great. This is a guy who might be one of the best goaltenders I've ever seen in the playoffs, and who allowed, 6, 7, 8 goals a game against the London Knights this year, despite his best efforts. I think Carter George is a player that has a really strong trajectory to the National Hockey League. And I could say very similar things about Hampton Slakinski. Slakinski was a late round swing out of high school for the LA Kings, and he was a guy who, when I went and watched him with the NTDP a little bit here and there when he played, I thought he was really impressive, but again, I don't know enough about goaltenders to really put my name behind guys, but Slukinski did always seem like a decent one, and so far so good. He's an NCAA champion with a team that has won their first NCAA championship in hockey ever, and one of their first in decades at doing almost anything in college sports. So that's a great thing to have on your resume in the first place, and I'm really curious to see where both of these goaltenders go. But in this tier as well, you've got two players out of the OHL in Liam Greentree and Henry Bruchstevitz. Liam Greentree had a really great season, and the Windsor Spitfires are a team that I think found a lot of success by community. Everyone kind of chipped in a really good way, but Liam Greentree is a player that I just couldn't believe was still available when the LA Kings picked him, and I just feel like there's so much there in his game. I think the pace of his skating and the overall speed at which he plays the game are definitely concerns projecting his offensive abilities to the NHL, but at the end of the day, the skill level, the vision, and the scoring ability is second to none and really high end, especially for a player as tall as he is. Henry Bruchstevitz is a player that I wasn't as big on this season, but I see the appeal. And I can see how if a team values him as a first round pick, why they would do that, and how he might slot into an NHL roster, which is what puts him here, even if I feel like a 49% part of me wants to put him a tier lower. I just feel like the defensive side of the game for him is a lot longer away than I think people realize, but that's not to say that he's not a good hockey player. This is a really creative offensive defenseman. He's got some really good skill. I found him to be a much more projectable but still questionable version of his older brother, who's with the Calgary Flames system right now. He's a bit more of a dynamic skater. He's a bit more aggressive offensively with a little bit more explosiveness, and I think that just projects in that style of play a little bit better, even if I think that there is still a pretty decent chance that Bruchstevitz maybe doesn't have the biggest NHL role. And with what he brings and maybe doesn't bring to the game yet, he is a player that I feel like is gonna be on your second pair, second unit power play, and probably not a penalty killer on your third pair or a number 7 guy that comes in and out of the lineup and just chips in his own end here and there. This is a pretty big swing for the fences in my opinion, but in the late first round, I guess I see where the logic is coming from. It's just a matter of the fact that I thought there were some better bets to make, but still a decent one to add in the first place. But for the Kings, the really intriguing guys are in the maybes category. There is a lot going on here that I really like. I still like Jacob Dvorak, even though I've moved him down a tier. The offensive game with him is just not really there, but it is going to be really important for people to remember that while this is his second year in the AHL, he's going into his third, which means to me, if he were a CHL player, this would be his rookie season in the AHL, so anything decent this year is a successful year to me, and I do think that there is a job for him but I do feel like there's a decent chance that Dvorak projects into being that bottom pair or number 7 level guy that I don't think Bruchstevitz could be, but I don't think Dvorak is going to be that top 4 guy that Bruchstevitz might be either. So they kind of offset offset each other in a really interesting way, and I feel like Dvorak I'm just a little more hesitant on, but I feel like another good year he'll be right back up in the tier above this. Petteri Rimponen is in this tier as well, Finnish goaltending superstar from the World Juniors. Admittedly, he was excellent this year. There was a lot of things in the data and to my eyeballs that I really liked in his game. I think there could be an interesting goaltender here, but I don't really have the same level of confidence with him as I do with guys like Carter George and Hampton Slukinski, but that's not to say he's no good. Time will tell. It'll be an interesting season after such a good one this past year, and Rimponen is on track to potentially be a tier higher than this down the road. But there are also just some interesting potential depth guys. Now, I know Samuel Helenius played on the team this year for about 50 games, and he's in this tier, but to me, Helenius is a player that is kind of at his ceiling, and he was kind of an in and out of the lineup type player. I think it will really come down to who's deploying him in what position, and if he is going to be a fourth line guy on a specific guy's coaching system. I don't know. He wouldn't be my type of guy on the fourth line. Maybe I would keep him around and see what he can do chipping in. He just has a bit of a limited NHL style of play, but he's big, he skates okay, he's tough, so potentially there's a job for him there as well, but I don't know. Not my type of guy, and I don't know about 5 years from now being an everyday LA King, but who knows? I think Jared Woolley could be another example of that type of a player just on defense. I don't see Bruštevec playing the kind of a role like a Jared Woolley could play in the NHL down the lineup, but I feel like there's a bit of confidence that a guy like Woolley can step in down the lineup at some point, but I'm just not sure he'll bring enough at the offensive side or moving the puck up the ice really consistently that will land him in the NHL, but there is a decent floor there. Wojtek Cihas is a player who was kind of intriguing last year. I've seen him a little bit in some summer preseason games in the Czech League this year, and he has looked pretty good there as well, but I don't know again about a really high upside NHL player there. Maybe more of a depth guy, third line, checking forward, but again, riding the line here between a depth player and a maybe player, I still have some doubts about his skating and pace of play projecting. I like Christian Epperson quite a bit. I like Jimmy Lombardi quite a bit. Over the last couple of years, they've added just a lot of solid players. Even in their bottom tier, there are some interesting bets here. There's still a part of me that wishes Jack Hughes would have a breakout year and go back to that type of player that I remember from when he was 16, 17 years old, but it just hasn't happened yet. Jan Hovan, there are guys that are fans of his out there. He's big, he's got a pretty good shot, but I never was really blown away with his style of play. Brendan McMorrow has always intrigued me, but I'm not sure it projects to the NHL, but I feel like he could be a good college player, and from there, who knows what's possible. Kirill Kirsanov has been interesting in the KHL, but I don't know about NHL player. There's just a few guys in here that I think are interesting. James Reeder is very small, but had a better season than I expected in the NCAA to get his career started, but again, I still think that's a player that's a long ways away if he ever gets there. So for the LA Kings, they're getting a 2A here. I think there's an interesting group of players here, especially with really strong goaltending there, which is definitely something the NHL team could use a little bit more stability with. They've got some good top-end offensive style players and guys like Liam Greentree and Henry Bruštevec. They've got some interesting bets in that type of vein, guys like Ryan Conmey, Christian Epperson, Will Sharp, Jimmy Lombardi even. They've got some toughness, guys like Woolley and Helenius, maybe even a Dvorak. There's just a lot going on here that I think fills a lot of different gaps, and while that's not necessarily the direction I go if I were running an NHL team, I totally understand that philosophy, and I think the LA Kings have done a really good job operating within that world, and they do have a bunch of guys that, if they get called up, I could see it working out in some fashion. So overall, really strong performance from a team that has been in the playoffs a lot in the last little while, and while they may not have those game-breaking, game-changing, franchise-altering level talents right now, I think that maybe they move some of these guys for a player that can help right now in the NHL right away, but even if they don't, I think they've got some good players here, and hopefully the Kings can continue to take baby steps or big steps forward in the NHL with or without these guys. And with that, we're going to call it. If you liked the video, definitely like and subscribe. If you really liked it, definitely consider a subscription over at Scouching.ca, where you can get access to all kinds of fun data tools and our Discord server and plenty of other fun stuff that you're just not going to find anywhere else on the internet. So check that out at Scouching.ca. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.